Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, October 22nd, 2018. I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda for today's meeting.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Eliff,
Yes.
Mr. Boone,
Yes.
Ms. DiBaggio,
Yes.
Mr. Gothard,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes. Okay, then moving forward, then we have the approval of the minutes from last month's September 24th meeting. I believe we have the correct players here. Need a motion to approve the minutes
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
without exception?
without exception.
Second?
Second.
Second, Scott. Please call the roll.
Mr. Boone,
Yes.
Ms. DiBaggio,
Yes.
Mr. Gothard,
Yes.
Mr. Eliff,
Abstain.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes. Okay. Now we'll open the discussion for the major modification of Case 5-1968, Anderson. Property is located at 7391 Beachmont Avenue, Anderson Township, filed by K4 Architecture and Design on behalf of VRP Realty, LLC. Property owner zoned OO, planned office. We'll start with the staff report.
Hi, the case number 5-1968, major modification, located at 7391 Beachmont Avenue. Zoning is OO planned office district. The applicant is requesting a major modification to the final development plan per Article 5-1C2 for a vestibule expansion, an interior renovation, and a partial exterior renovation to the existing banking facility. Site history: the existing bank building was constructed in 1969 following a zone change from C residence to OO planned office. In 1997, PNC Bank added a raised concrete island to restrict turning movements to right in, right out onto Beachmont Avenue. And in 2003, a zoning certificate was granted to allow minor vestibule modifications that increased the building area by 20 square feet to 3,988 square feet, larger than the 3,850 square feet maximum allowed by Resolution Number 5, 1968. So looking at the property map, to the north is Beachmont Avenue, to the west, or to the east, excuse me, is 5 Mile Road, as well as Fell Lane, providing access to the banking facility. Here's the aerial view showing the intersection of 5 Mile Road and Beachmont Avenue, as well as the existing vacant banking facility. Topography map shows that the site is relatively flat. Looking at the site plan, the applicant has proposed to add 110 square feet to the existing vestibule. The proposed vestibule will be 27 feet 3 inches tall. There's a bike rack, two bike rack in the front of the building, and then a new concrete sidewalk extending from Beachmont Avenue to the proposed property. This is the signage. It's a new 32 square foot per side sign towards the corner of Beachmont Avenue and 5 Mile Road. The north and south elevations show that the exterior renovations of the building. And then the east and west elevations show the existing drive-through facility, as well as the proposed changes to the columns that line the drive-through facility. This image here is looking north towards the existing vacant banking facility, towards Beachmont Avenue, coming off of Fell Lane. This image looks west towards the existing chemical bank building and the existing drive-through lane. This is the front of the existing banking facility, looking towards the southwest. This image is looking west towards the chemical bank building, showing the possible location of a cross-access. The image here looks to the east at the existing drive-through facility, as well as the bypass lane that's over to the south. And this is the existing bypass lane looking east towards 5 Mile Road. Staff findings: any modification to the approved final development plan that fails to meet the requirements set forth in Article 5-1C2, but does not infringe upon a specific requirement or standard as set forth in development's approving resolution, as adopted by the Board of Township Trustees, shall be considered a major modification to the final development plan. An extension of the exterior vestibule meets this requirement. For approval, there shall be findings that any proposed changes to the plan will be in substantial conformance with the intent of the approving resolution, including related conditions as adopted by the Board of Township Trustees. The proposed, as far as compliance with the zoning resolution and Case 5-1968 resolution, the proposed major modification is compliant with the use, height, and setback regulations of the 00 planned office district. The proposed vestibule extension does not follow the square footage restriction of 3,850 square feet. However, the existing building is 3,968 square feet. The proposed vestibule extension increases the square footage of the building to 4,098 square feet. The site is not compliant with Section 5.5-3F1 of the Anderson Township zoning resolution, as 14 parking spaces are permitted, but 29 parking spaces are existing from the original construction. The applicant has proposed pedestrian access from Beachmont Avenue and a bike rack at the entrance of the building, compliant with Section 5-3B9 of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The site in question, is located within Neighborhood 2 of the Beachmont plan. The proposed exterior modifications are consistent with Anderson Township design guidelines and the Beachmont plan as they utilize a mix of varying building materials. Architectural elements such as stone columns and the entry vestibule update the building and add improvements to this highly visible corner at the corner of 5 Mile and Beachmont. However, the proposed freestanding sign is not consistent with the goals of the Beachmont plan for this area, which encourage neighborhood residential scale signage for commercial properties rather than a freestanding pole sign design. So this image right here is taken out of the Beachmont plan for this area. It shows the Beachmont Avenue to the north and Fell Lane to the east. The site in question is located on the western side, on the eastern side of this photo. So it shows a proposed parking lot connection between the 3 other properties to the west. While not permitted in accordance to Resolution Number 5-1968, the vestibule addition is compatible with the size and character of the building. The existing building is already larger than the approving resolution allows. The vestibule addition is consistent with adopted plans such as Anderson Township design guidelines and the Beachmont plan. The property is located at the corner of 5 Mile Road and Beachmont Avenue in the vicinity of Anderson Town Center. Staff recommends approval of the exterior modification as the proposed improvements are appropriate for the size of the building and street frontage of the property on Beachmont Avenue and 5 Mile Road. The vestibule is consistent with adopted plans such as the Anderson Township design guidelines and Beachmont plan as it uses a variety of high-quality materials and improves the sense of place for the intersection of 5 Mile Road and Beachmont Avenue. The proposed improvements are consistent with the approving resolution for the site and conditions contained in this case. The modifications allow for the applicant to realize a reasonable profit from the property while not compromising the intent of the planned office zoning district, as the proposed major modification is compliant with the use, height, and setback requirements of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. This approval shall be based on the following conditions. A vehicular cross-access easement to the property to the west shall be provided consistent with the Beachmont plan prior to final occupancy. The driveway connection shall be installed upon consent and granting of a reciprocal easement by the adjoining property owner. Staff is of the opinion that cross-access creates a full access point to Beachmont Avenue for this property. And the township has been a strong proponent of cross-access for the past 20 years, and this would be in conformance with the Beachmont plan as well. And having 4 drive-through lanes and a bypass lane on this property, staff believes would limit the potential congestion that could be caused at this area, in the drive-through area. Number 2, a monument-style sign at the corner of 5 Mile Road and Beachmont Avenue, consistent with the Beachmont plan, shall be installed. All previous conditions of approval from Resolution Number 5-1968, as well as any other modifications, unless superseded by this application, shall still apply. Substantial conformance with the plans in the application packet dated October 2nd, 2018 is required. And with that, I'd be happy to field any questions.
Okay. Thanks, PJ. We'll start down at Mr. Boone.
Really
Questions
just
for
one question, which sounds like is probably at the heart of some of these discussions. Just so I'm clear, who wants the cross-access vehicular connection point? Is it the bank or is it the township?
Township staff.
Township staff?
Well, it's a recommendation of the Beachmont plan. So our Beachmont plan, which was recently updated earlier this year, which was originally adopted in 1996, calls for cross-access for properties on Beachmont Avenue. And this has been a recommendation of that plan since the beginning, 1996. So the township adopted plan is recommending cross-access.
Are the other cross-access points already there? I didn't drive over to see if the other
No,
3 or
not
4
in this,
buildings.
no.
So this would be the first cross-section
This would be the
point.
first, correct.
Okay.
In this area of the
Right.
township.
But the bank doesn't want it, and the property owner
Well,
doesn't? Is that-
the property owner has submitted a letter that they are opposed to the connection. The tenant is, or the bank is here, so we can hear from them as well. But the owner has expressed interest, or not expressed interest in the connection.
Yep, okay. That's it for now.
Okay. Good.
Is there a minimum width for that cross-access?
20 feet would be a minimum width for two-way without parking off of the sides. So
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
20 feet, which is about 2 parking spaces. You know, a typical parking space is 9 by 19, so this would allow for two-way access.
Okay. And this, when I read through case 568 and the resolution, it sounded to me as though, and I write this off to someone who wasn't here then, that the Fell Lane connection, it sounded like it was a temporary connection that would disappear once the north-south connector were put in place. Am I misreading that, or do you have any input as to the history of that?
I wasn't here either. So,
You weren't born yet, let's just get, I was, but,
okay, I won't disagree with you. I wasn't here either. 5 Mile Road was constructed as a limited access highway originally, and that was the intent of the 5 Mile connector. So when it says connector, Fell Lane, was in place prior to 5 Mile Road. I read it like you do. You can read it that way. I know the intent was to not have driveways off of the limited access highway, which was 5 Mile. And I can't speak to the other part of it.
okay. All right. That's it for me, thank you.
Good. Mr. Gothard?
No questions for staff, thank you.
Mr. Wheeler?
On the sign, one of the drawings the applicant submitted shows a monument sign, and then I think elsewhere it says they'd actually prefer a pole sign, but then the conditions are that it be a monument-style sign. So is this, if we adopted the staff conditions, it would be a monument-style sign?
Yeah, that's a recommendation of staff, having it consistent with the Beachmont plan that's been adopted for this neighborhood. A neighborhood-style sign, smaller in scale, is recommended by staff at this location.
How tall is if you know, the monument-style sign the staff would be interested in versus the pylon sign they're talking about, which I think was 11 feet tall, maybe? Do we know how tall the monument sign would be if we approved a monument sign or required that?
Yeah, because you're correct, the applicant did submit a monument-style sign originally. I don't have the
So, but
size
It
of
looks
it.
like it's about 5 feet tall or so. I'm just-
generally they're 5 to 6. We don't have a maximum height that we treat it as a monument-style sign. So the 10-foot pole sign is actually conforming, but we encourage a monument-style sign. I think we had this discussion one other time.
Several times.
Several times, so.
They could, on the monument-style sign, Paul, could they do a reader board with that as
Yes,
well?
yeah, so the
Okay.
maximum square footage is 32 square foot, and that's the same, this sign is conforming. It's a conforming sign per the zoning district. The
Right.
Beachmont plan, though, just encourages a monument-style sign. It doesn't limit the height, though, or we don't have a height
Okay.
max.
Thank you. And it said in the staff report that the site is not compliant with Section 5.3. Is the site overparked or something? It's
Yes,
overparked.
the zoning requirement is 14 parking spaces. The proposed redevelopment has 29
So
parking
they keep their
spaces.
spaces that are there already?
That are there
And we
already.
could go ahead and approve that because it's an existing condition or
Correct,
something like
yeah.
that? Okay. And then on the cross-access easement, this lot's got some funny kind of narrow one-way streets pulling into it and around the side and stuff. So if you did a cross-access easement, is it envisioned, maybe we can see, yeah, you can kind of see it there along Field Lane, and then around the back, the bypass lane, they're basically, looks like they're wide enough for one-way traffic. So if there was a cross-access easement, if they were required to grant that, would they basically have to grant it over essentially the entirety of the property to, because otherwise it looks like you'd have conflicting, two-way traffic if it was just on the backside of it? Or do we know yet?
When the CFI went in, it limited the circulation for this property to one-way movement. Fell used to be 2 lanes in this area, which allowed for two-way circulation. When the CFI went in, Fell was narrowed to 1 lane. So it limits, vehicles coming in Fell need to go north toward Beachmont, and it's a one-way circulation around the parking lot. So with cross-access, that one-way circulation would still be in effect, but we are recommending, two-way access to
Right,
the
right.
connection.
Just getting to it might be a little more circulating directly to
Yes.
it.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So south of the drive-through? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, well, there's a
South.
little drive south of the
Yeah.
drive-through, but
There's a
it's
bypass
it's
lane.
not wide
Yeah.
enough for two-way
The
traffic.
bypass lane is a
Yeah.
one-way, but all traffic exiting to Fell Lane needs to go through that bypass lane.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I had one more question.
No, go ahead.
It did see that a benefit if you did that, if we did the cross-access would be, there'd be, now the chemical bank would provide potentially a full movement if that worked out. Is there any concern as far as coming onto Beachmont of adding more traffic onto a full movement driveway, potentially, if the bank traffic went out through the chemical bank?
I mean, that's a benefit for the bank, for
Yes.
Center Bank, for this property. The property owner is supportive. They sent an email saying that they are supportive of cross-connection, so it's not
The
a
next
concern
door
of
neighbor.
theirs.
The chemical
yes.
bank.
Chemical
Gotcha.
bank.
Okay. Gotta keep my banks straight here.
Yes, so the attorney who owns the building next door, he sent an email in favor of a cross-access.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Along those lines, my question was with, where's the township with discussion with the other property owners with the cross-access? Is
They are in support of it.
every property owner other than one subject tonight?
So we've had discussions with all these property owners with the update of the Beachmont plan, and actually from the original plan, because this has been in all of the plans. So we've always had a discussion among the property owners. With the major modification before you tonight, that conversation was opened again with just the next door neighbor, just the attorney,
Okay.
who submitted a letter in favor.
Have we talked to the other ones since the continuous flow has been
The
installed?
church and the realtor. So the church, I think, would be in favor, yes, and the realtor, I think they've always been somewhat
So no opinions have changed because of the continuous flow?
correct.
Okay, great. Any other questions for staff? Thank you. This time, we'll ask the applicant to come up. Please give your name, address, and your affiliation with the case.
I'm Jeff Klump with K4 Architecture and Design, 555 Guest Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45203. Also with me tonight is Center Bank President Stuart Greenlee, and then Connie Wiley is also with Center Bank. We also have Andy Fry with the property, Bob Poole, Carol Poole Mackey, and Bill Mackey, all representing the land.
Okay.
And then also Tom Tepe with KMK Law, Keating, Meeting, and Camp. We are asking for a complete interior and partial exterior remodel at the location at 7391 Beachmont Avenue. We are requesting a major modification from the 00 Planned Office District. The original zoning had 7 items. Zoning resolution number 372 from February 1969 said the original square footage would not exceed 3850. From what I understand, there was a net area change also in July of 2003 when MSA Architects submitted a revision to the plan for a vestibule expansion. I'm not sure if as a minor modification. I think I read that in the minutes or something. But what we're proposing is to do the full interior renovation, but also the exterior modifications, and add another 101 square feet, which would be 4,089 square feet to the existing building, which is only a vestibule expansion and making that vestibule a tower to get natural light into the lobby, but also to try to create some more curb appeal to the building. Based on the amendment to the zoning resolution dated May 19th, 2016, other things that we've done, we had a bicycle parking. We also added the off-street loading area. I don't know, Mr. Ginty, did that affect the parking? Did that cut? We added out off-street loading area on the west side of the property.
Yeah, on the site plan submitted October 2nd, 2018, it was still at 29
It
spaces.
was, okay.
Mhm.
But we did add the loading per the request of the township. And the freestanding pylon sign, as Paul mentioned, we would like a 10-foot sign. It sounds like we could do that if we put a monument base. So I would like to defer that and talk to Stuart about that a little bit, because that was our concern was that a monument sign, if the monument sign's only 5 or 6 feet and people were parked, there actually would be parked because the traffic's so bad, but if people were sitting on Beachmont Avenue, the 5 or 6 foot sign wouldn't be that well seen. So if we could do something 10 feet tall, maybe we could put a monument base under it or berm it.
Yeah, I think there are options there. The only caveat is if the base itself is greater than a foot, then that goes toward your calculation of the overall square footage.
Okay.
So that, but I think the plan calls for a monument-style sign. There are different monument-style signs that still have that height, but they are more in character with the monument style versus just a pole.
But the 10 feet is allowable,
10
correct?
feet is the max height, yes.
Okay.
It's just the wider your base gets, that gets into the calculation of the overall square footage of the sign.
Okay. So-
If it's a monument sign, they can only be 3 feet wide. That makes sense. If it's
No, we can allow, they're allowed 32 square feet. For the-
counts towards the square footage.
But you're saying the base counts towards square footage?
Right.
Okay. Because we would prefer the 10-foot height only because of the visibility on both sides, traffic going east and west. So we would request that if possible, and again, I think it is a compliant sign, correct, Paul?
The one that's proposed, yes.
The one that we proposed, yes. 2 wall signs toward Beachmont Avenue and 5 Mile, less than the square foot allowed by zoning. And then we also illustrate that there's plenty of drive-through stacking. So in conclusion, we are requesting a complete interior renovation of the facility, exterior modifications to give the building a better appearance on the corner and expand the vestibule. We are requesting a new freestanding 10-foot sign. We have been shown the 2 bicycle racks, the designated all-street parking. We've also addressed the lighting. We did replace all the lighting with LED, but we did provide a photometric that shows that we are in compliance. And then we also submitted a landscape plan, which we assume is in compliance. So really, I guess the only outstanding issue is the proposed vehicular access easement to the adjacent property. And we put on the drawing that it was contingent upon approval from all the neighboring properties, or the neighboring property, I guess, to the, east. So I will let Tom Tepe with KMK speak for VRP in reference to that. Thank you.
Can I insert one thing as well, just briefly, as I noticed we didn't swear in witnesses. Usually that's something you would do with the BZA, but appeals of a zoning commission decision.
Correct. If it's not a quasi-judicial, we wouldn't swear them in, correct?
Typically correct, yes. However, an appeal of this wouldn't go to the township trustees.
That's correct.
It would go to court.
BZA.
So just out of an abundance of caution, I'd advise that it's probably best if you actually do swear in all your witnesses. I'm happy to help with that if you'd like. It doesn't matter. But I just don't want an argument to come up later from anyone that chooses to appeal saying, hey, you didn't swear in witnesses, and that's a grounds to open up the appeal.
Okay. Thank you. I do not.
I'm happy to swear in everyone at one time, and it'll take care of it, and then you can just go on about your...
Any objections from the commissioners? Okay.
Sorry to insert that.
No, that's fine. It's why you're here. Unfortunately, you've already spoken, but if you don't mind,
I can fix
reaffirm.
that, too. Sir, can you just state your name?
Jeff Klump,
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you just gave is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay. And then I could also likewise, if you want...
Yeah, like, if anyone will be speaking tonight for or against, please stand at this time.
Thank you.
Except for me, correct?
Correct.
Anyone else? Okay. If you can get sworn in even if you won't speak.
Somebody from the family. Right, so just do it.
Great. Yeah, if you think that you may want to speak and you don't, that's fine. It's better to do it, and then if you don't, that's fine too. But everyone raising their hand, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Great. Sorry to...
Thank you for that.
Momentarily.
Good point. Thank you. My name is Tom Tepe. I have the pleasure to represent the property owners. Wanted to thank you guys for your time. I had the pleasure to serve in a similar capacity in my community, and I understand the time commitment that it takes, so I always try to say thank you to everywhere that I go because it's a lot of time. You do have a letter from me in your packet, and the letter speaks for itself. You got to look at a little bit of context, a little bit of history here. This is a piece of property that, for lack of a better phrase, has been beat up over the years. It has been taken again by various governmental authorities, ODOT, by the county, you name it. And there's a little bit of fatigue, if you will, by the property owners. You know, when this issue came up saying that in order for us to approve, frankly, what is going to make it a whole lot better building, but not change the use to a bank, you have to provide access to your neighbor. That's like me coming to you saying, you may love your neighbor, but you got to let him drive across your property. You don't have to. That's my position. Understand you have your own lawyer. He's a great lawyer. You all have your own opinions, but you don't have to. It's the right of exclusion. It's the right to do with your property what you want in a reasonable manner, right? That soapbox is over. Commerce prevails. We have to get this done. And if they said, we're not going to provide it under any reason, I'm not sure what this commission will do, but should you deny the application, we understand that we'd have a right of appeal. And what is this saying? Time kills all deals. And we don't want that to happen either. This is a great user. Center Bank will be a tremendous addition to this corner and to the township. And so for that reason, notwithstanding and not waiving anything that I've previously sent in, we will consent to the cross-access easement area. There was much concern and confusion on our side as to what exactly does this require. Going back all the way to 2008, they've got great files. They found a previous drawing that shows darn near an engineered private driveway with all sorts of stuff. And they said, well, time out. Who's paying for this? There's grade changes, there's water issues. So we were able to get here early. We spoke with Paul, and he said that the only requirement is to show connectivity between the two properties. An easement, right, two ways, only with the next door neighbor, not the one down the street, not the other one or the other one, just with the bank property. And I'm not saying that lawyers are difficult people, but it's owned by a gentleman who's a lawyer. And we're going to require an agreement, as you always would on cross-access, and we're going to come up with a reasonable agreement, but we can't give you any promises that they will agree, or that their terms, because frankly, if we're going to give them access to our property, we might as well get access to the full access curb cut, which is part of the whole premise behind this. Nobody will be unreasonable here, but you can't make people sign a document if they don't want to. We had that conversation, because that was a big concern of mine. What if we try and we can't get there? You know, we will agree to allow that easement, but they don't have to allow us, even though they say in their email, we're in full support. You know, I've seen everyone say we're in full support until maybe perhaps we say, how about a little cost maintenance sharing? Not unreasonable. Happens all the time. They park there now. If you go back to the pictures, all of those cars, they're not bank customers because the bank doesn't exist right now. That's their cars. Their water, if you can see, they put in some riprap. Their water drains all the way down there into that catch basin. So I don't think it would be highly unusual or commercially unreasonable to say, we'll make this connection, but we don't think it would be unfair to ask for some maintenance sharing, since you guys are the ones that are going to use it to go out to that road. Maybe the water is causing damage to the parking lot. Maybe that's not unreasonable to ask you to kick in. Maybe we need to repave this from time to time. That's not unreasonable for us to ask you to kick in. All I'm saying is that we will agree to do it, as we have. We will do everything we can to come to an agreement, be reasonable. We're not going to be commercially unreasonable. But those are sort of the things that I suspect will come up, because I suspect those are some of the things that I may write into an agreement. Just want to let you know, and it was clear that we spoke with Mr. Yoder, that should we present a document that we are unable to come to an agreement on, that we are still able to move forward with this, and that we'll show the access on our plans as it is, but that may then come up if that property ever comes through for a major modification. I just want to be very clear on that, because when you're asking us to depend on somebody else in order for us to get permits, that makes us just a little nervous. And I think you can understand that, because you can't make your neighbor do something if they don't want to do it. So if I've misspoken, I just want to be very clear. Is it generally accurate? We'll show it, we'll do what we can to come to an agreement, but there's no 100% guarantee that we can come to one. But Commerce has to move on. The bank needs to lend money. The family would like to relet the property, and I think what the proposal is an outstanding addition to to what I would say is generally a tired corner right now. And so we look forward to that, and I think the sign as applied for is reasonable. And just looking across the street, you don't want to put somebody at a competitive disadvantage. Chemical Bank is probably more than 10 feet up on, because there's a grade change. You have U.S. Bank, which is across the street, that has a pole sign. We're just asking for not much more than what anybody else has in the neighborhood. I'm open for questions. I know the family is here that can answer questions, but we'll do what we can. We'll agree to the 20-foot cross-access. Hopefully, you've seen this. And another concern, just for the record, is that bypass lane is pretty skinny. It's 8 feet. And so if have this building, which houses significantly more people on a daily basis than what we have, it was just a concern that we had. So I've aired it all out. You've heard the presentation. We ask for your approval of the major modification as applied for. We will agree to that cross-access, as I just indicated, and we ask that the sign has been applied for be granted.
Okay, great.
Thank
We'll open it up for commission. I just have a question for staff, though. Do we have a template for cross-access that we can give as guidance?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So we can help with the, facilitate the discussions?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Open up to Commissioner Boone.
Well, it sounds like they're agreeable to this. But I'm curious, with this lane that we're looking at right now on the screen, this is the 8-foot lane, the bypass lane?
Is this directed toward the applicant?
Not yet. It will be.
That is the bypass lane,
Okay.
the asphalt.
Do you have concerns that people are going to turn left there if you do come to terms with the neighbor? Supposedly, you've got to go around the bank, right, to get to that cross-access?
Well, I think there's a tremendous concern. I mean, we don't want people, using this
Right.
as a mini racetrack. We don't want people coming in, circling around. It's just not in the
Yeah.
bank's best interest. I think it was stated earlier, and if I misspeak, Stuart, let me know. I mean, they're a little bit different type of bank, and a lot of their customers are older, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a concern with the confluence of this office building coming through into this 4-lane existing drive-through.
Right.
I mean, it necessarily creates a traffic conflict on our property.
Yeah.
We're being told we have to give this office building access to our property, which they've agreed to do, but understand that they're running a business as well, and in a perfect world, they'd rather not have it. I think that's clear, but we have to get this deal done. And so they'll agree to it, but there's a lot of heartache. There's a lot of consternation. Don't want people coming in here taking a left, so perhaps even on site, they can do curbs that you cannot take a left,
Right.
that you must only go straight. I mean,
Yeah, that was going to be one of my thoughts on that.
and we had asked
So-
Paul whether or not that's doable. I mean, and the answer is yes, it is. I mean, provided we comply with all building codes and zoning regulations, et cetera. But yeah, that was a big concern, long-winded answer, but that was a good question.
Okay. That's it for me.
Okay.
The other question that I would have is the 20-foot, may I speak? Jeff Klump, K4 Architecture and Design. The other question I would have is, if we use that bypass lane, could we do whatever the width of that is as easement for exit, and then do the 20-foot just connecting the two properties? Because that way it would inhibit, because people are they're typically used to drive-through traffic, and most people would then go, unfortunately, they're going to go around the building to get to the neighboring properties. But one of the discussions we had was running a curb all along this curb, and that would help prevent people from, if somebody was stacking in the drive-through lane and decided they didn't want to go, and if they turned to the right, they could pull right into somebody going through here. If we
Right.
curb this, so maybe a discussion would be that we make this a 12-foot easement one way, and then do the two-way just at the property line. Would something like that work? Paul?
Yeah, I think this has to be signed and marked as a one-way. And that's the traffic flow for your entire property. So I assume that's what I think there were signage in your plans that is denoting just for
Yes.
your own customers, the circulation pattern for
Correct.
the bank.
Correct.
That would be the same for any cross-access traffic.
Could that easement be written that way?
Yes, so the plan recommends,
One way just here. What I'm saying is have the two-way easement connecting the two properties, so that if people leave this they could go through the Chemical Bank property to get out to the other driveway, the full access on the other side of Chemical Bank, right? So, because again, this is one way around. So I mean, this was a plan that Andy found that was from 2008, I believe, Andy,
Right, which
correct?
predates the CFI, which predates
Yeah.
this property being a one-way circulation. So the plan that we have on the presentation was from the most current plan, recently adopted earlier this year. The recommendation is a parking lot connection, so there would be two-way movement from parking lot to parking lot.
Correct.
But once you get to the Chemical Bank property, it's going to be a one-way circulation pattern.
Chemical or?
Once you get to the center bank, I'm
center.
sorry, I misspoke.
Okay.
Chemical and center. So once you get to the center bank property, it's already going to be a one-way circulation around the building.
Okay, because that's what I'm saying is, could we make this two-way, Paul,
That's
here?
two-way, correct.
Then just limit it to a one-way through this
Right.
12-foot section?
So the key, which has made all of this work up and down Beachmont Avenue, the goal is to tie properties together to help traffic flow on Beachmont, not just for the safety on Beachmont, but also to the benefit of the property owners, for people trying to get to your business. In an ideal world, we would have two-lane roads.
Right.
But it's
Ideal,
not an
right.
ideal world.
Right.
And so as properties redevelop, the key is just to get those parking lot connections. And it would actually, I think that's going to serve as a traffic calmer going through the bypass lane anyway, and then once it gets into the one-way circulation pattern.
Now, we did not show speed bumps. Is there any opposition to that?
No.
Okay.
Paul, do you have your pointer that you can show the
It's over
traffic?
there, isn't it?
Can you show the traffic flow
Sure.
going west and east,
Sure.
if it's not?
PJ might. I don't know if it's turned on, PJ.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
So
Just walk us through.
So coming up Fell Lane, this was reduced to one-way movement once the CFI went in. It used to be wide enough for two-lane traffic, but now with the CFI, it has to be one-way, and it's one-way going north. So if you're accessing the Center Bank property from Fell, you have to go north to get into the parking lot. When you leave the banks, Center Bank, you either have to make a right out onto Beachmont Avenue or exit back through Fell Lane, but a one-way movement. With a cross-access connection, it would allow you to make a left onto Beachmont. And in addition, if you were traveling west on Beachmont Avenue, it would allow a left turn into Center Bank through the Chemical Bank building, whereas now there is no access from Beachmont Avenue unless it's just a right in if you're going east. If you're coming through the Chemical Bank property, yes, you have, if you're visiting Center Bank, you still need to go through the bypass lane and then do the one-way traffic pattern. The parking spaces on the west side are angled, and they're proposed to be angled, so that will help delineate the movement, the traffic movement. And then there was signage proposed, to direct
So
traffic flow.
because of the limits of 8-foot, 12-foot, but it's not 20-foot, going east would be behind the property and going west would be in front of the property. Is that,
Yes.
so it's not our typical bidirectional cross easement?
Correct.
Okay.
But that's, that's with or without the cross-access easement, there is one-way, there's only going to be one-way movement with this property.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I still have a question to figure out if are you okay with just signage, or do you want some sort of curb? Because you can have all the signs that you want. People can still turn left onto that little 8-foot, 12-foot, whatever it is, to get over, the 12-foot, I guess, to get over to Chemical Bank. Right?
Well, I think that there used to be do not enter signs there. I don't know if they were removed.
I don't think that matters.
Same thing with cutting through, and I'm sorry, Andy Fry.
You just need to come to the podium.
And Mr. Fry, please come forward.
It's my mother-in-law, Bob's the son, Carol's the daughter, and Bill's a son-in-law. The other concern is the straight-out right cut-through
not even waiting for the CFI. We get you took the property in front, and you took property off the side, which made that the one-way, because it was two-way, right? So I get that all this beautiful right-hand turn lane now in front of the building, but guess what? Now it stacks up over at the side of 5 Mile, right? The loading zone before it, you know, we've seen them, you know what I mean? It stacks up right on the property that you took. So people still cut through. People still cut through the property, and they're going to cut through the property. There's no signage. We can put speed bumps in. They're going to cut through the property. Just like you can ask the people, you can start on the other side of the property and you go up to the corner where old hospice used to be, and you can ask the daycare, and you can ask the people who, you walk out a pedestrian door and somebody's cutting through. I'm not saying there's not a benefit, but let's be honest, people cut through. And that's, and then conditionally, we have water flow now. Even though our property is relatively flat, we are the beneficiary of all three properties, water. So much so that sometime in the past, now it's my 97-year-old father-in-law and my 93-year-old mother-in-law, sometime in the past, somebody dumped rock, just dumped it on the thing there to slow the water down, so it slows down to a little, so it doesn't overtake the pre-existing culvert. Now, if we go and ask being friendly, we get you're going to give us access by the 20-foot, we get that. But we're going to go up to this attorney who owns the other building and say, hey, guess what? You were just greatly enhanced by being to move onto our property. We'd like you to put a drain in. We'd like you to spend $80,000, $100,000, let's put some drains in and move this water the way it's supposed to be moved. Well, good luck to us in trying to make that happen. I get it. It seems to me they're getting all the benefit of the cross-access. And I get you can do the same thing, hold occupancy on them. When they go to submit their next major plan, whenever that is, maybe this will get fixed sometime in the future. But that's the major concern from the family side. The property, we all know Beachmont used to be a 2-lane road when this was built. It got, at some point it went to 4. Property disappeared. The CFI, property disappeared off the front and off the side. Now I get they paid for it. We understand that, right? It was a take. This is just playing nice and granting access to the neighbors who are currently parking 8 cars on the property, currently. So I just want it known that we're not going to stop cross-through traffic. If somebody comes up 5 Mile and they come on Fell, their whole intent is to leave by Fell. You're not, if you come up 5 Mile and you go out and you make a right to go through 5 Mile, I don't know where you're going, but maybe you're going back east. I highly doubt that my 93-year-old mother-in-law is going to go through the back of Center Bank, back through the Christian church and out. But I know darn well people cut the corner and pull through. Pull through. And I parked my car, because I wanted an example today, when we were at the building, I parked my car going the wrong way in the easement lane, and I was going to take a picture of it to show you how, that when they whipped through today, they got caught because my black car was in that 8-foot lane. But it didn't happen, so I'm not going to sit here and act like it happens all the time. But that's the concern, to cut through the safety, the insurance costs, hitting a pedestrian, hitting an old, I was a 33-year safety manager at UPS. I know things happen. And I know things happen unintentionally. So that's all I'd like to say. That's, we're thankful. The occupancy holding this whole thing up is going to cost the family 3 to 6 months rent, right? That we had, this whole thing was supposed to be done by January 1st. Here we are, it's October 22nd. This deal's not getting done, so I got to go to Stewart, put an addendum on this thing for another 3 months, 6 months, no rent, so we can get a deal done, or we fight it. We lose Stewart, and the family fights it for 2.5 years, and we'll go on with, the next bank.
Thank you.
So, that's just plain and simple, just from the heart. That's the concern, the cut-through traffic and creating more cut-through. If you move the whole thing south, you move it to the dentist office who's never been touched, he's going to lose some parking. He's never been touched, never been nicked. The property behind us has never been nicked.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boone, did you?
Yes. So, sir,
Oh,
I had a quick
sure.
question. Understand your concerns, appreciate your family's investment in the community and the bank's investment. And I can understand, things have been chiseled away over the years. But I'm still just trying to get the answer, because I thought I heard your attorney say that you're acceptable.
We're for it. Yeah, we are for it.
Okay.
But we're gonna approach I think it's a little, I think it's impossible. I think it's impossible that we're gonna go up to Paul, help me out, what's his name? Who owns many, and go up to him and say, hey, Paul, why don't you help out good old 7391? We just gave you your highway through our backyard, but how about putting in some, I can't even think, he got me so excited. Some slow down, some bumps, some speed bumps.
Yeah.
How about doing something with the water so we don't have to take it all? And then you're gonna go up to the church and you're gonna clean that area up. Because right now it's just a little curb cut, a little funny looking thing that everybody kind of drives through up there. At some point they're gonna clean that up and it's gonna force more water down on the property. There's not one sewer, not one drain on those next 3 properties behind that property. Not one. So I know who's dealing with, and I know our original agreement with this gentleman, that they're going to plan on spending $800,000. The family's spending on $300,000. That's a $1.1 million project. And here we are, $1.1 million, and I'm going to go to our neighbor and say, God, we love you. Right? And expect him to help me with water? No, you know who's going to help with the water? The family's going to put another $100,000 below ground to help with the water that's coming from our neighbors. That's just plain and simple. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Because we're going to lose the rock right now that's slowing it down. The rock that's there, slowing it down, is going to be paved. So it's just going to come on down. So, and all I'm saying, if I would have known this, if we would have known this 6 months ago, we could have addressed all this. But here we are, October 22nd, addressing it, and we're going to lose 6 months' rent from the group in the back of the room and sink more money into the property. It would have been nice to know this, to negotiate this deal.
Let me answer your question specifically.
Okay.
They don't want it.
Right.
They don't need it.
Not gonna
They don't need access
read
to
between the
there,
lines.
but in order to get the deal done, they feel like they have to.
Yeah.
We're being held hostage. Being held hostage.
They understand in order to get this, that's
I think it's
probably
time that we start addressing one at a time from
Gonna
the
be
board
re-
only. If you want to
it's gonna
speak,
be
you can come
required.
up later.
Okay.
So that's to be,
Again, yeah, we appreciate your statements and your passion. We're going to move forward with the questions of the applicant.
I'm good for now.
Okay? Commissioner-
I have some
Commissioner Goddard?
questions, maybe Mr. Klump. The lighting plan submitted shows .2-foot candles along the east, the west, and .4 along the south property lines. I believe zoning resolution requires .1 at property lines.
Did we resubmit that? I have to go back and look, because I thought we met the requirement based upon
Would you
the...
be willing to meet the requirement if
Yes.
it's less than the submitted?
Yes, we will be willing to meet the requirement. I thought we did, that we revised that, so
Okay.
not sure. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, we will meet that requirement. I mean, because we could easily put shields on the lights and things like that. I mean, again, that's not,
shields.
yes.
Different fixture
Yeah.
housing or something
Correct.
like that. Okay. And then going back to the sign, would you be willing to work with staff on maybe some sort of compromise between, if we grant, between a true pole sign to morph it into more of a monument sort of sign?
Again, I don't want to speak necessarily for Center Bank, but we,
In a residential district, it's 1, office district, .5 for the lighting cutoff.
oh, okay. He just pointed out the lighting cutoff.
Okay.
But If there is a way, you want to speak?
Aesthetically, we'll do whatever they want.
You need to speak into that.
Yeah, please come forward.
It's being recorded.
Are we talking about the lighting or the sign now?
I swear to tell the truth. Stuart Greenlee, Center Bank, 744 State Route 28, Milford, Ohio. Okay? Yeah, we'll absolutely do aesthetically anything you want with this sign. We do need it 10 feet high and 32 square feet, as high as we can get it, or else it'll never be seen. We're a community bank. You know, we're not a Walgreens or a Fifth Third where someone's looking for a franchise. You know, we're a small community bank, and we need people to see where we're at.
Sure.
Okay.
Paul, would you entertain then wrapping the column with a brick or a stone that matched the building? Would something like that?
It's really up to the zoning commission, and the Beachmont plan recommends a monument-style sign.
Okay. So, but yes, we will work with staff on creating something aesthetically pleasing as long as we can get 10 feet. Because that's our concern. The competition has it, if it's a low monument, only whatever the original submitted was at 5 or 6 feet, we're concerned that people are not going to see it. And I think that was Stuart's concern from the very beginning was, I think there was a pole left there, but the face of the sign wasn't. So, and again, I think the sign that we're showing is compliant, it's just not what's recommended. If I think I stated that correctly, correct?
Just, yeah, and just so if the base is wider than a foot and it goes toward the overall calculation of the sign. The sign
Correct.
they're showing is 32 square feet with just the pole. So there may be an issue where they would be over the square footage allowed, which a variance would be needed.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Elam?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
I don't either, but for clarity, they are in compliance with the lighting and the sign as
Correct.
submitted.
Correct.
Okay. All right. At this point, we will ask if anyone else, or if anyone wants to speak in opposition. No one? Okay. At this point, go ahead.
Was there anyone else in favor?
I'm sorry, did everyone's that raised their hand, some that didn't, can't come forward? Anyone else want to speak in favor? Great. So at this time, we'll close that part and we'll open up discussion among commissioners.
All right, I'll start. I mean, I'm reading between the lines here. I don't see this pass-through cross-access vehicular connection ever occurring based upon the, you know, agreement that would have to come in play between Center Bank and Chemical Bank. So, you know, I'm not sure why we forced the issue. But certainly I understand our plan and our desire to achieve this. It's just this is a very specific and extenuating, I would say, circumstance with the drive-through and the circular pattern and the one-way traffic. And I share the safety concerns of someone coming out of the bank. And I mean, I'm guilty of finding whatever cut-through I can, especially, you know, I mean, the other question I've got is we just invested a ton of money in this Beachmont, you know, the, what do they call it? The
Continuous flow.
The CFI.
Why are we directing people off of this brand-new investment onto these parking lots? So, you know, I'd be inclined to just, you know, in this particular case, to pass on this cut-through. But I realize
Okay.
I'm just one of five.
Well, we're not to a motion yet, but we'll just
Yeah.
take that into consideration. Mr. Bott?
Generally, overall, I mean, mostly in agreement with Scott. I like the idea of the cross-access cut-throughs, but I did drive through it this evening on my way here. It is very narrow. I remember when it was PNC, and I'd come around and then go back down Fell, because I didn't want to deal with Beachmont. It's an unusual one, compared to most of them that we have said, you must have this. To me, this is a little bit different. And though I really am personally kind of opposed to the pole signs, because they get ugly over time, I believe US Bank right across the street has one. So I understand their point of, hey, you're putting us at a competitive disadvantage, especially if you're small and people aren't looking for it. So that one, honestly, I'm a little on the fence, but to me, those are the two big issues of this whole thing.
Okay. Mr. Crawford?
I have nothing further to add.
Yeah, my comments on the sign is, I think it would be reasonable, I totally agree that that little sign out there is not going to be of any use. I don't think a wrap pole sign is going to work. We have one of those right across the street, and it looks really bad. But, yeah, put a monument base on that, and I think it'd be reasonable to give them their 32 square feet. So they get their height, they get their 32 square feet, and we'd see compliance with the plan, and, you know, I think that would make a huge difference aesthetically, rather than having another pole sign out there, and I appreciate that the bank president was in agreement with that. Yeah, the easement's a tricky one here. It's not, that site's hard to drive around today, and, you know, if you've ever tried to take a left out of that chemical bank, it probably doesn't, people don't do it, you know. I mean, I was with Mr. Baggio, or I drove through there tonight too, and could hardly get out of the right in, right out on Beachmont, so that cut through will be used big time. But the way I understand we would entertain this easement is exactly how Mr. Tepe described it, which was they're not just going to roll over and give them an easement. They're going to be looking for shared expenses, maybe even reasonable limits on it and stuff. And I think in this case that's very reasonable, because they'll be accepting a lot of traffic onto their property. Maybe there will be some stormwater issues as well, as the owner pointed out, that need to be addressed, and before they take advantage of that, they should be required to share in that. And if there can be a reasonable agreement met, then perhaps that cross-access will be a benefit, but it's a tough one. I guess I'm pretty much in favor of it, with the condition that the easement be mutually acceptable, knowing that might be a kind of a tough one to get to yes, and hopefully, as they indicated, they would negotiate that in good faith. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at on it.
Okay, thank you for everyone for their input. I'm also conflicted by the not being a traditional bi-directional easement that we see in some of the other properties. As far as the signage, I think we use a lot of these cases to do some cleanup for curb cuts and for signage when they come before us, and it may be our only opportunity going forward until the next variance is requested. So it is not an easy one. We usually, the owner of the adjacent property wasn't here to discuss, and this isn't really a negotiation session. But that being said, at this time, I'd entertain a motion of the commission.
I'll make a motion. I'll probably need a little help with the language here. So my motion will be for the approval of a major modification to case number 5-1968 Anderson, property located at 7391 Beachmont Avenue, Anderson Township, filed by K4 Architecture and Design on behalf of VRP Realty LLC, property owner, zoned OO planned office, with the exception of the proposed cross-access vehicular connection point. So to exclude the cross-section vehicular connection point.
So looking,
Numbers 2, 3, and 4.
so looking at the screen here, you want to
Okay.
exclude
I'm sorry.
condition number 1?
Yes, condition number 1.
Okay.
Yep, sorry.
And does your motion then include 2, 3, and 4 of the staff recommendation?
Yes.
And I would ask if you'd entertain this modification on the monument sign, that it is a monument sign, would be required, they're allowed to, we would also include in this with the requisite findings for an appropriate variance,
Yep.
that they'd be allowed a 32 square foot sign,
Yes.
not to exceed 10 feet in height, and they would put a full monument base on that to match the brick finishes on the building. something like
Yes.
that. Okay.
Thank you.
So just to clarify on that, is we would, in our normal calculation of the sign, we would calculate the base as part of that. If it's over 6 feet high, we calculate the base in addition to the 32 square feet. So it's going to take it above 32 square feet if they raise it up.
Yeah, in this
So-
case, I think we'd be approving it, not counting the base as part of their signage square footage. So they get a 32 square foot sign cabinet, if you will.
I think we need
That
to...
would be, so, can you put it back on the sign? So if we do the calculations,
Yeah.
it looks like it's 6 feet, if I'm reading that right. So
Yes.
6 times, it's 40 square feet in addition, no, I'm sorry, 48 square feet in addition to 32 square feet, which is a large sign in the office zoning district, when they're only permitted 32 square feet. I just wanted to make sure you were clear on that.
I am clear on that, but I'm saying the base is just going to be stone, so it's not actually going to be readable material. I understand the nuance that that's how we measure them here, but in this case, I think it's reasonable. I'm sorry. Right.
So are you more or less saying you want, if I could read condition 2, it'd be a monument-style sign at the corner of 5 Mile Road and Beachmont Avenue, consistent with the Beachmont plan, shall be installed at a height no greater than 10 feet, and the face of the sign itself shall be no greater than, is it 32 square feet?
Yes.
Paul, is
Yeah.
that work?
Can you read that back one more time, please, Ben?
Sure, so it'd be the whole sentence except no period after installed, and it would say, at a height not greater than 10 feet, and with the face of the sign, no greater than 32 square feet.
Essentially, you're saying that you're
Just raising it.
the whole area to be 48 square feet of stone base.
That's what I'm saying, yep.
Could we limit the length or the width of it to less than 8 feet?
I think we're starting to design the sign.
Yeah. I think...
Well,
mine-
I'd just add that normally, bases aren't counted in signage. I understand we do that here, but that's not an unusual on a corridor. Granted, this is in the office district and all that, but that's not an unusual massing for a sign on a corridor like Beachmont Avenue at the corner of 5 Mile. It's just not, and I hear what you're saying, Paul, maybe this is unusual for our historical interpretations here, but that sign's not going to be out of scale on that corner.
Well, so across the street, we have BP who has a pole sign. Anderson Town Center does not have a sign at that corner. The Health Plaza does not have a freestanding sign at that corner. So right now, there's only one pole sign at that corner, which is BP. So I just wanted to make sure we're clear on that.
It won't be a pole sign, it'll be a
Well,
monument style.
yes, but I mean, that scale of a sign.
80 square feet.
You want to read back the motion, and we'll see if we have a second.
Okay. A monument-style sign at the corner of 5 Mile Road and Beachmont Avenue, consistent with the Beachmont plan, shall be installed at a height no greater than 10 feet and with the face of the sign no greater than 32 square feet.
Okay. Were there any other conditions? Mr. Boone?
Nope.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Can Can you read that motion back one more time? Did you say base or face? Sorry, perhaps my hearing's harder over here.
At a height no greater than 10 feet and with the face of the sign no greater than 32
Face.
square feet.
We know it's each side.
Yeah. Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Please read it.
Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Ms. DeBaggio?
Yes.
Mr. Gothard?
Yes.
Mr. Eliff?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Yes. Thank you. This time, do we have any other business? Agenda's closed. Okay, take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Boone?
Aye.
Ms. DeBaggio? Mr. Gothard?
Yes.
Mr. Eliff?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.